Am I the arsehole? For telling a bridesmaid she can't bring her dog to the bachelorette party? I am the maid of honor for my sister's wedding. We're planning a bachelorette weekend in Vegas since my sister has never been before and has always wanted to go. We plan to be out of the hotel as much as possible, making the most of our trip. One of the bridesmaids recently asked in the group chat about accommodations for her dog, a 50-pound Australian Shepherd. I was wanted to bring her dog. The bridesmaid said the dog was an ESA emotional support animal and that she likes to have her dog there on planes. We live on the East Coast and will be flying to Vegas. We literally flew to Istanbul together not 6 months ago without this dog and there was no issue whatsoever. And when we get to Vegas, does she plan on her dog all cooped up in her crate the entire time? The hotel we're booking does have dog-friendly rooms, but doesn't allow pets to roam freely around the hotel room unsupervised. The dog would have to stay in that crate for God knows how long each day. That can't be great for the dog. On top of that, our other younger sister coming on the trip is very allergic to dogs. We don't have the money to just let this one bridesmaid book her own room for just herself and the dog to prevent my younger sister having an allergic reaction. Unless this bridesmaid was willing to pay for a room herself, I told her she couldn't bring her dog on this trip. I thought that was going to be the end of it, since this was definitely reasonable on my part in my opinion, but this bridesmaid is now being super pissy with me and saying how it's so wrong and horrible of me not to let her bring her ESA. Bearing in mind she's been absolutely fine without the dog in the past on much longer flights. Bearing in mind I even told her she could bring the dog if she was able to pay for a room of her own so that my sister doesn't have a reaction. Reddit, please just put this one to bed. Am I the arsehole here? Not the arsehole. Bearing in mind I even told her she could bring the dog if she was able to pay for a room of her own so that my sister doesn't have a reaction. So she's being cheap and considering locking up her pup in a small cage, not taking allergies into account? She sounds like a pretty self-centered individual. You're doing the pup a favor. Not the arsehole. She can pay for her own room if she wants. Your sister is allergic. You are not required to accommodate her ESA in any other way. That's leaving aside all issues about how much she might actually need the dog, and the quality of life for the poor dog trapped in a crate in a hotel room in Vegas. Not the arsehole. All of your logic is exactly spot on. If she feels so adamant, then she can come up with her own accommodations. Otherwise the dog has no place at a Vegas bachelorette party. Not the arsehole. Bearing in mind I even told her she could bring the dog if she was able to pay for a room of her own so that my sister doesn't have a reaction. We literally flew to Istanbul together not 6 months ago without this dog and there was no issue whatsoever. So, she wants her dog with her. Which is questionable how much she needs. And the rest of you are expected to help cover the costs, or deal with allergies? Not the arsehole. She is wanting to bring her pet so she can foot full cost on that herself. It is not a proper service animal, e.g. guide dog, so it does not need to be there at all. Your younger sister's legitimate allergy trumps taking a pet. Not the arsehole. I think a lot of people seem to think their ESAs have the same rights as service animals. They do not. The only thing an ESA is allowed to do is be with you in an apartment that otherwise doesn't allow your pet, and allows you to waive a pet deposit. That's it. ESAs aren't allowed in airplane cabins anymore. I had 2 ESAs and would never have even thought to bring them places they weren't welcome. Info: what is her plan for the dog's care in Vegas? What is she asking you for? There is no room in a Vegas hotel room for a 50-pound dog. Not the arsehole. Have you also considered that she is going to want to bring the dog to the wedding? Not the arsehole. She wants to bring her pet. It's not welcome. Not the arsehole. The bridesmaid is making a power move, since by your first-hand experience, she travels without her dog at other times. Red flag for actual wedding day, but honestly, this may be something on which you defer to your sister, the bride. I'm assuming the bridesmaid is more your sister's friend than she is yours. Info: does she even have the documentation to fly with this dog? Airlines have been really cracking down on ESAs due to the influx of people buying some bogus certificate online and calling their pets an ESA to try and circumvent pet policies. ETA not the arsehole either way, I'm just genuinely curious how this is going to work. Like the girl is living in Delulu land. Not the arsehole, ESAs are pets, and you have no obligation to accommodate her pet, and neither does the airline. Besides that, someone in the party has a serious medical problem with dogs, and accommodating her pet could have serious consequences for your sister. Be sure to let the airline know about the allergy so someone else doesn't cause a reaction. Is the person wanting to bring a 50-pound dog willing to buy an extra seat on the plane or have the pet in luggage for a long flight? I doubt she is considering what is best for the dog. ESAs aren't even allowed on airplanes anymore. The Air Carrier Access Act was amended to exclude them in January 2021. Following that ruling, every U.S. domestic carrier updated their policies to exclude ESAs. If she wants to bring a dog and get her own room, of course she should pay for it. Why would anyone else be expected to contribute to that? Not the arsehole. Info: this does not change my judgment. Are you sure the hotel allows for dogs that large? I travel frequently with my dog who is just under 4 pounds. Everywhere I've ever stayed, the pet usually has to be under 20-25 pounds, and yes, they have to be confined in some way. Not the arsehole. I do travel with my dog, but only to relaxing places where she can get lots of walks and playtime in. I'd never bring her to a wild weekend in Vegas. Info: not that this actually matters because you are still not the arsehole, but how does she expect the dog to fly with her? Wouldn't a dog that size have to be placed in cargo? It's my understanding that ESAs are no longer accepted in most places because people abused it. Not the arsehole. It may legitimately be her ESA, but if she loved the dog and cared about its happiness, she would not bring it to Las Vegas, to be penned up for hours on end in a hotel room. If she insists, then she needs to book her own accommodations and make sure that none of the rest of the bridal party can be held liable for the damage her unhappy dog will wreak upon the hotel room. Not the arsehole. For what it's worth, you don't want to go with the argument that she didn't need the dog on the earlier trip, because a trip out of the country would have probably required quarantine, and it would have made no sense to take an ESA she was going to be separated from the whole time anyway. You've got conflicting needs, so you're accommodating the person with the allergy and the sister of the bride, who outranks the bridesmaid in terms of priority. Not the arsehole. As someone who has taken their dog to Vegas because we were road tripping and it was on the way. It's a horrible place for a dog because there is literally no grass. Let me tell you, I had a hell of a time getting them to go. In fact, there were homeless people going in the hotel's designated doggy area. She will be better off boarding that dog. Plus it's weird to burden the rest of you with the costs of a pet-friendly room. It's not a service dog. Stand your ground, she is being unreasonable. Your little sister cannot stay in a pet-friendly room due to allergies. The end. If she must bring her dog, she won't be staying in the shared room, which will need to be pet-free. This is not negotiable, and everyone involved needs to stop pretending it is. Since the regs changed in 2021, most airlines will no longer accept ESAs in the cabin. They are only required to accept service dogs, a very different thing. Unless she can demonstrate that her dog has received specialized training as a psychiatric service dog, meaning actual training both in emotional support techniques and in public behavior, the likelihood is that the poor dog will have to fly in the cargo hold, placing its life at risk. Not the arsehole. Bridesmaid is a crappy dog owner. Natar. She needs to book her own room at her cost. You are not disregarding her needs, you are thinking of all the other bridesmaids' needs. Majority rules. Send her the contact info for dog boarding services in LV. She can pick one and board her dog when she gets to Las Vegas. That way she gets to fly with her dog. Am I the arsehole? For saying my bill should move the date of his wedding or husband and I can't go? A friend of mine from college is getting married at a destination I had dreamed of going to for a long time but was totally out of our budget. Her uncle owns a resort and has offered amazing discounts on rooms to her guests. We've had this planned for months, RSVP'd, booked a room, arranged childcare, everything. Now his brother wants to get married the weekend of the wedding. They're not really doing anything, just a quick ceremony and party in my in-laws' backyard. It will be more like a family barbecue than any kind of actual wedding. My husband wants to cancel everything so we can be in town. I don't want to cancel, for the reasons outlined above. We've been in an argument about it. I suggested that his brother can just move it to the weekend before or after. They don't have out-of-town guests, a wedding venue or vendors booked, or anything that would stop them from being able to move it so my husband and I can attend. It's just pure stubbornness. My husband isn't backing me up on this at all and has definitely been talking shit to his family about me, which I hate. He thinks I'm being entitled. If his brother was having a real wedding that had been planned for months and involved a ton of time money spent, I'd feel differently. But as I said, it costs them nothing to just change the weekend. Am I the arsehole? Not how you go to your friend's wedding, take A+1 if the friend is fine with it and your husband can go to his brother's, problem solved. If I were in your shoes I would go to the friend's wedding. You were looking forward to that trip. Not the arsehole. The other response is so weird. Yes, the wedding that has been planned for months that you've probably already RSVP'd for takes priority. It's a huge commitment to be invited to something like this. It doesn't matter how much money was spent. Your friend planned ahead and sent invites. This is not the same seriousness as a family barbecue. His brother is being inconsiderate doing it last minute. If he wanted everyone to be there he would plan a date far enough out to have notice. Info: why don't you go to your friend's wedding, and your husband goes to his brother's wedding? It's understandable for your husband. Attending his brother's wedding is his priority over his wife's college friend's wedding. Married people don't have to do everything together. If your husband wants to take the financial loss to be there for his brother, why not? I'm sure you'll have a fantastic time at your friend's wedding, catching up with your college friends and enjoying your dream destination post-wedding. And solo holidays are so nice, you can truly chill out and do whatever you want to do. Not the arsehole. You both made a commitment to attend your friend's wedding. You just don't break a prior commitment for anything except an emergency. A conflicting event is not an emergency, no matter how much you might wish to attend it. It's not about you, it's not about the destination. It's about you and your husband's integrity and keeping your word. Why did the brother book in date without checking to make sure all the important people are available? If you want your family and closest friends there, you check with them before locking it in. Edited to add judgment, not the asshole. Not you already RSVP'd, yes. Even if both weddings were low-key, you've committed to your friends. Not the asshole. And if Bill wanted his siblings at his wedding, he would have checked if they were free before picking the date. Especially when there's no limitations on, e.g. special venue that only has one spare weekend this year. Why didn't Bill check dates with his brother before fixing the date? Does he mind if your husband is there or not? Or is there any possibility that having the dates clash was intentional? How much does your husband want to go on this particular holiday? Could he be trying to sabotage it? This is why they need to bring back basic etiquette, because anyone who lived through those times knows that when you accept the first event invitation, it's extremely poor form to bail on it for another invitation, no matter how much better it may be, although in this case, it is not. Not the asshole, but your husband is for not backing you up, and especially for shit-talking you. This is a big red flag, and honestly at this point, I'd consider going without him. Not if it were me, I would go without my hubs and let him go to his brother's wedding. The family will still be disappointed, but you'll get to go. I'd go to the destination wedding for sure. You've had it booked for months. I bet Bill knew you were away that weekend. If husband wants to stay at home for Bill wedding, then let him. Take a friend or relative to the resort with you and have a great time. Not the asshole. Your husband is tough for talking shit on you, this his family. I'd be gone quickly after that tbh. Not the asshole. Go to the wedding. Let your husband go to his brother's wedding. Him talking shit about you is not okay. You might need marriage counseling. NTA for sticking to the prior commitment. But calling Bill's wedding not a real wedding? That's an asshole move, and most likely this elitist attitude of yours blew the whole thing up in husband's family. Edit judgment. Talk to your husband, tell him you don't appreciate the way he is bashing you behind your back to his family. His words and actions have caused you pain and discontent. Let him know that you made a commitment before his brother ever set a wedding date and you intend to honor that commitment. Let him know if he doesn't want to honor his commitment to attend the wedding with you, he can stay and attend his brother's wedding while you attend your friend's wedding. Tell him no hard feelings if he wants to attend his brother's, it's his choice, but you would like an apology for his words and actions leading up to his decision. Enjoyed the wedding. Not the asshole. Planning a backyard barbecue that requires zero planning and costs nothing to change the time of on a date when your husband is away is completely your Bill's fault. If he really wanted your husband there, he'd change the date. Not the asshole. You already have plans. All you need to say is you can't make it. Not the asshole. Your husband is not being reasonable here. Your friend's wedding has been planned a long time and you have RSVP'd that you will go, booked a room and organized childcare. Just go anyway on your own if necessary. Your husband can go to his brother's wedding and barbecue and take the kids, saving you that cost. In this specific situation, not the asshole. Didn't they already know that you were supposed to be on another destination for a wedding that weekend? If they want you in their express surprise wedding, they should have done it at a different weekend. And your husband speaks bad about you to his family? You have a bigger problem than the wedding. You committed to the first wedding. Miss Manners is on your side. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. You go as planned and your husband can stay home. Not the asshole. Prior commitment. Bill should have checked in with the main people he wanted at his wedding when he decided on the weekend. Your wording about not a real wedding etc. is not cool, but you're not the A for wanting Bill to move the date. He wouldn't be an A for not moving it either. Your husband is the A for shit talking you to his family. Sorry, but you guys have already made a commitment to go and your husband is A for talking crap about you. Petty me would tell him he can go to brother's, I'm going to the other since we already said we go. Not the asshole. Attend to your friend's wedding and your husband can stay home with the kids for his brother's wedding. Used months ago. Info: did your husband actually want to go to your friend's wedding? Would he have asked his brother to have barbecue on the same weekend? Like you said, given the circumstances of the barbecue, it would be nothing for them to pick another day. I'm petty enough that I'd go on my own and have the best time. Not the asshole. Prior commitment. Edit to add: I think hope he meant not a real wedding, as there are no deposits needed to book a venue, caterer, etc. and can be moved easily to another day. Not the asshole. It's been booked, paid for flights, and RSVP'd. Your husband is a huge asshole for not cleaving to his wife and talking about you behind your back. That's the part I'd drag him on. He's being a shitty husband and is, for lack of a better word, a fucking traitor. Not the asshole. Their wedding came after, you are now obligated to the first and everyone else is being an ass here. Not the asshole. This was booked well in advance. It's possible that Bill did not know or had forgotten about your previous commitment. I understand your husband's POV too. I would have gone for nah except for his attempting to guilt you into cancelling the trip. The baby can't be split in two and that's just how it is. Neither option is wrong and the two of you might have to go to different weddings. Am I the asshole? For telling my Dill she wasn't invited due to her weight. We have done plenty of things that are not physically taxing with her, but even the small stuff, she ends up on a bench half the day. We went to a small mall, half the day on the bench. It was window shopping. She is obese, her ankles are swollen from her weight. The connection between her weight and not walking far without a break is very obvious. Post. I will try to keep this short. I have 3 girls and we still like to do girl trips for the day. My son got married to a girl named Beth. Now before her first kids she was average weight and after it got a lot worse. Her only kid is 8 years old at this point and she hasn't lost the weight. It's bad enough that she needs constant breaks walking. I used to like her and now I don't due to how she acts. Everywhere we go with her it is constant complaining that she is tired. The last girls' trip to the mall was spent sitting on a bench half the day since she needed constant break. If you try to leave she will go on about abandoning her. It's annoying. I invited the girls to go to a farm for pumpkin patch and pick some apples. It has big orchards and a ton of walking. We went, it was a great time and some pictures went on Facebook. I got a call from Beth asking why she wasn't invited. I lied saying it was just a family trip and she accused me of lying. I had enough and told her the truth. I told her she wasn't invited due her weight. That she forces us to stop all the time and it ruins the trips most days since we don't get to do half the stuff. She called me a jerk and hung up. I am getting texts from my son saying to apologize, but the girls are on my side and are sick of having trips ruined since we have to wait for her all the time. I'm not as small as I used to be. If I know there is a lot of walking in an activity I am being invited on, I decline and say my knees are just not up to it. She needs to use her own common sense. Mill calls and invites her to do a 5-mile hike, she knows she can't do it, say maybe next time we can do something. Mill calls and says we are going to the mall for lunch and window shop. Say sure, that's great, I will join you for lunch and then leave. I'm not much for walking the mall. Not the asshole. There needs to be balance. Beth needs to bow out of things that are too physically taxing for her, use mobility aids so that she doesn't hold up the entire group and not complain when others opt not to spend most of the activity time waiting on her. When you do include her on things, hopefully you choose things that don't require much walking, and when you do need to leave her, don't cave to her whining. Tell her you love her and you'll meet back up in 20 minutes or rotate who gets to sit with her. I think her attitude more than her weight is going to keep her excluded. And I hope her 8-year-old isn't being left out too. Not the asshole, but I would have explained nicer. Maybe frame it like you are looking out for her. Sorry, didn't think you'd want to do all that waking. Last time we walked a lot, you needed lots of rest and complained the whole time. That leaves it open for her to realize her own shortcomings. And if she says she wants to go, you say okay, but we aren't taking a bunch of breaks. Are sick of having trips ruined since we have to wait for her all the time. At the risk of being called fatphobic, good for you. Not the asshole. Why should your trips revolve around her? Why should you be forced to plan outings that are within your DIL's step limit? Finally, you're free to only invite your actual daughters to things, too. You aren't blocking her from any and all family gatherings. She just got blocked from this one, which I hope is the first of many trips you and your daughters have been putting off for her sake. Get out there and see the world. It's lovely. I'm overweight and I completely see Op's point. Whenever we go anywhere, I spend most of the time either sitting on a bench, in a cafe, or in the car, depending on where we go. I just read ebooks while I wait. I like to go on trips with the family, but I don't mind being abandoned. In fact, I prefer it, rather than thinking I'm spoiling it for them. Not the asshole. It's not because of her weight, it's because of her inability to keep up. Not the asshole, but got to explain it better. Info: do you invite her to girls' days that don't involve a lot of walking? Not the asshole. She insists on going to all events, then complains and won't let anyone go on without her to keep having fun. If she was the least bit considerate about it and tried to compromise, I'd change my vote, but since she's not and just wants everyone to suffer with her, not the asshole. ESH. The problem isn't her size per se, it's her fitness. If it is size itself, you are the R. But what you complain about is that she can't fully participate and holds you back. Fat people can be physically active. Instead of telling her that her lack of fitness was the issue, you focused on her size. This was both hurtful and inaccurate unless you have been dishonest about your reasons, with us and possibly yourself. And Dill was a bit over the top, probably because you hit a sore spot. Natar. You are free to invite who you want for whatever reason. This isn't about her weight, it's about her making the trips about her and refusing to let you have a good time because of her FOMO. She's the one who needs to address her inability to be good company on the daughter trips. If that means she needs to lose weight, fine, but your issue isn't with her weight, it's with her being an absolute energy suck and spoil sport. Clarify that to your son and Dill. ETA not the asshole. Op is kind of a weight snob. She states that her son's wife was average weight before they had kids, but after the kids, it got worse. Not, it got bad, it got worse. Implies that she already thought average weight was bad. Finally, you're free to only invite your actual daughters to things, too. Finally, an excuse to be free of this fake family member is tripping over possibly the only way to be the asshole here. It is because she whines and complains and wants everyone to be limited like she is. All she would have to do is be pleasant and set it up so she takes breaks and meets up with the rest of you later. It is not about her limitations, it is about her demanding that no one else gets to go at their own pace. I have physical limitations and try my hardest not to temper others' activity when I can't do things. It is possible, in fact it is a lot more fun. I've learned to do more sedate things places so I enjoy myself too. Here's the thing, I don't think you actually have an issue with her weight, this is really about how she acts. If you had first told her it was about how she acts she likely would have blamed it on her weight and still said that you were being fatphobic, which is never okay, but again not what I think that you're doing. You're not the asshole, but I think the relationship with her and your son won't improve until she's ready to own how she acts and have a conversation about it. So I'm not going to give a judgment, but going to say that that level of fatigue isn't normal and it's worth considering an underlying medical condition. I'm considered obese 40-42 BMI and live a very sedentary life in addition to a chronic pain disease, but I can go for a day in a pumpkin patch and apple orchard without having to sit down, much less walking around a mall. What is your end game here? You're ready to blow up your relationship with your son because you're unwilling to accept his wife how she is. So now you're going to start excluding her. You think she will ever want to spend another moment with your family? You're not exactly wrong, but you are an asshole for sure. Not the asshole. Lots of people saying OP should have said something about stamina, not weight. In the moment it's tough to pick all the perfect words to avoid Reddit cleverness, but the rest of the convo included that her weight stopped her from doing things, which made it pretty clear it's not 'cause Dill is unattractive for weight, her weight is stopping her fitness. You're the asshole for making it about her weight. You actually don't know what is causing her fatigue, and plenty of fat people can run all over the place. I'm thin and almost all of my fat friends are in much better shape than I am because I have a chronic pain disease. It would have been absolutely fine to say that you were planning on walking around a lot and you wanted to be able to do that without frequent stops. No need to mention her weight for any reason at all. Not the asshole. 3 don't need to be involved in all of them, especially if they can't handle the outing. You're the asshole. You should have told her the problem was her attitude and whining, not her weight, since that's the real issue. You were deliberately hurtful for no reason. ESH. I understand that long periods of physical activity can be uncomfortable for you. Sometimes we are happy to wait. Other times, we plan a very busy day. This was going to be a busy day and we did not want to have to sit down or rest for long. Am I the asshole? For telling my grandmother stop trying to make me to be her dead daughter? I-18F was named after my aunt who died in a car accident at 15, almost 20 years ago. I was told when I was born, my grandma saw my hair red and begged my parents to name me after my aunt. They agreed. From a young age, I was aware she favored me. It also caused my other cousins to resent me. I didn't like her favoritism towards me and just wanted to be treated normal. She would often say, "You have red hair like your aunt," or "Your aunt used to like art, I'm not into art," and would encourage me to take it up. I refused and it would upset her. "Your auntie liked her hair in this style." I complained to my parents and they said that I just bring her comfort. Whatever. My 18th was 2 weeks ago and me and my friends planned to have a weekend road trip. My grandma disapproved and said my aunt would have done a party at home, and I finally lost it and said that's because I'm not her. Stop trying to make me be your dead daughter. I'm sick of it. My grandma started crying and left the room. I immediately felt bad. I got yelled at by family for making my grandma cry, and my dad was the only one who looked troubled and stuck up for me and told everyone to leave. My mother was upset with me and, like everyone else, demanded I apologize to my grandma, but I refused. My dad told me not to worry about it, and just go enjoy my road trip. It should be settled down by the time I get back. Except it hasn't. Everyone's still angry and my grandma hasn't spoken to me either. Not the asshole. Do you like your name? You are 18. If you don't like it, it may be time to get a name change. She favors you. It has already damaged your relationships with cousins due to her favoritism. She really thinks you are a replacement daughter, especially since your whole life she has tried to get you to be exactly like her daughter. Not the asshole. Could use a grandma. I'm sorry for blowing up at you the way I did, but this is a conversation that has been a long time coming. I don't feel like you love me. You love some other person that I remind you of. The only affection I can remember is about how much you love someone I have never met. It's like a 1,000-yard stare instead of someone actually looking at you. I am my own person. Not the asshole. You are not your grandmother's support animal or comfort blanket. You are you. Sounds like the family has gone the path of least resistance for years, and maybe sometimes that has been something you've been okay with, but you do not need to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Your parents, and all that enabled your grandmother to postpone her healing in this way are the us. Forge your path. Your path. And in a roundabout way, whatever your grandmother's recollections are, you will probably honor your aunt more, as I'm guessing like most people she would have done the same. My dad was the only one who looked troubled and stuck up for me and told everyone to leave. Your dad just realized how they screwed up. Children shouldn't be born with jobs and they saddled you with a huge one. Not the asshole. Not the asshole as well-meaning as it was of your parents to name you for a deceased sibling. It was a mistake. Your grandmother is trying to make you live up to an impossible standard, that of a child that who never got to realize their potential. You are never the R for wanting to live your own life in the way that you want to. And after years of frustration of being compared to your deceased aunt, you finally lost it. Your dad, at least, has your back, and the rest of the family needs to realize that you have been putting up with this for 18 years. Not the asshole. All 4 of my brothers are named after deceased family members. Never once in all their growing up years did my parents allow anyone to try and force them into being some dead person's mini-me. I get that granny misses her daughter, but 18 years of non-stop crap is deeply disturbing. It's never going to end if you don't keep your foot firmly on the ground and tell the fam you're sick of it. You are your own person, not your dead auntie's clone. It may take changing your name completely to get them to recognize and accept your individuality. Not the asshole. What your grandma does is not even unhealthy for her, but also was very unfair to you. Instead of your enabling her, your family should encourage her to do therapy again instead of letting her use you as a substitute for her dead daughter. I am glad your dad is on your side. While I understand that you didn't mean to hurt your grandmother, you shouldn't suffer just so she can feel better. Not the asshole. Good on your dad for having your back, but it should have been done ages ago. Not the asshole, you are literally over the age at which your aunt died. There is no she did this or that at this point, it is all parent fantasies and speculations, except she is not your parent. You need to sit down with your mum and dad, but it seems he is already on your page, and explain to her that she needs to help you be yourself, not someone else's fantasy. You need her to have your back in this. It's tough dealing with constant comparisons. Not the asshole. Not the asshole, your grandma needs help. Nata, it's crazy that the adults around you are enabling this. Not the asshole, your dad sounds like the best person in your family, by the way. It seems that everyone has allowed your grandmother to behave the way she has all your life, possibly for the best of reasons. The lady after all was grieving a dead teenage daughter without thinking for 1 second about the inevitable consequences. You are the one that is owed an apology, no one else. You are neither an emotional support animal or a clone of your aunt. Not the asshole. Not the asshole for feeling manipulated into being someone you aren't, and for standing up for your individuality, but A for the delivery. This is why I hate naming a child after another relative. Too many older relatives transfer personality traits on a young child. Not the asshole, and even the delivery was deserved. Your aunt is dead. You are not her or her replacement, and someone needed to say it out loud. Not the asshole, your entire family, including your parents, little late for dad to step in now, allowed her to turn you into a touchstone for her dead daughter. She made your cousins resent you. She treated you as a second chance with her daughter rather than the person you are, and everyone allowed it. She never processed her grief, and your family failed both you and her. Not the asshole, unfortunately this is a case of extreme grief that blew up. You are your own person who has their own likes and things you enjoy. And you aren't fitting onto the pedestal that grandma placed you on when she saw your hair. Frankly, grandma may never get over it if she doesn't get help. And you can't make her start talking to you. As an adult of 18, I'd plow through this. Treat grandma like you did before this all blew up. Don't respond when she makes comments about what your aunt liked. I'd talk to the sibling of said aunt and see about getting grandma some much needed therapy. I'd take grandma not speaking to me as a win. Now you can live your life, not your dead aunt's. Not the asshole. You are a person, not your grandmother's emotional support pet. Not the asshole. Not the asshole, if your parents had addressed this years ago, you would not have had to. Big not the asshole. No one owns you, and no one should be telling you how to live your life. It is terribly sad what happened to your aunt, but that is not your burden to bear and not your responsibility to replace her. You are your own person. Good luck up. Not the asshole. Someone should have stepped in long before it came to this. The lesson learned here, though, is for you to push back earlier when you can still be firm but gentle, rather than wait for it to get to a breaking point, where your response was more exasperated and frustrated than it was gentle. But that honestly is more on your mom than it is on you. I'm guessing she's your maternal grandmother, and your mother sucks for enabling this. Stick with your dad. LC North Carolina. Anyone who promotes this toxic BS. If you want, consider changing your name to something that represents you, not your dead aunt. Not the asshole. Well done. Hanging on to a dead woman for decades isn't healthy. Your parents really shouldn't have let you be named after the dead daughter, but maybe they can speak to her for you. Your father seems to be in your corner. Perhaps you can speak to them seriously. Is she his mother? You have become a substitute for your aunt in the eyes of your grandmother. She really needs therapy for her loss, but it may not have been available to her. But you are your own person, not your aunt. Not the asshole. Am I the asshole? For wanting my stepson to stay with his mom while he is sick. I F36 am married to Matt. He has a son Dylan from his previous relationship, while I have my daughter Abby from mine. Matt and I have been together for 4 years and married for almost a year now. I love Dylan like he's my own and consider him as my son. He's a sweet little boy. Matt and his ex have 50-50 custody. 1 week we'll have Dylan for 4 days while his mom has him for 3 and vice versa. Abby's dad passed before she was born, so she's with us full time. Abby also was born with a chronic illness and she has a really weakened immune system because of it and is even does online homeschooled. I know things happen and people get sick, but when Abby gets sick she always ends up being hospitalized because of it. Yesterday Dylan's mom called Matt letting us know he probably has the stomach flu because he's been throwing up and has a fever. Dylan hadn't been with us for 2 days at that point, and when he left our house he seemed perfectly healthy. I ended up talking to Dylan's mom wondering if he could stay with her until he's better so Abby doesn't possibly get sick. Dylan's mom knows about Abby's health but still insists Abby will be okay. I can just quarantine them both to their room until Dylan is better. That wouldn't be fair to either kid, plus I would be around both of them and could possibly cross-contaminate it to Abby. I asked Matt to talk to his ex and he tried, but she then accused Abby being favored over Dylan, which isn't true. Abby just has more needs health-wise. Dylan's mom then called me and Matt is saying we should just try and have Dylan come back here. I want to stand my ground for Abby's healthy web though I'm being Why is stepson in quotations? Info: what do you and your husband do when one of you gets sick? Does the sick parent leave the house until they are well? Have you consulted Abby's doctor about other ways to her healthy when a member of the household is sick? Info: what would you do if Dylan was with you guys and caught a bug? Is the understanding that he would be immediately sent to his mum's? I see both sides of the issue and personally don't see any HS here. I will say that you all need to come up with a long-term plan B. See, Dylan will be getting sick again in the future. You want to keep Abby safe and Matt's ex wants Dylan to feel loved and important by both his parents, not just when he's healthy. Take your daughter and go to a motel. Your stepson can stay with his dad, and you will come home after he pays to have the house deep cleaned. All you need is to have your daughter hospitalized again because your husband's ex doesn't want to help you out. Not the asshole. Nah. I guess that you're worried about your daughter, and having Dylan stay with his mother seems like an easy solution. But honestly, Am I the asshole? For telling my wife that she will have to wait to go back to work even with our agreement? When my wife and I decided to get pregnant, we agreed that she would stay with our son for the first 2 years and I would spend another 2 years until he started going to school. My son, due to birth problems, was born with health problems, and because of this, there is a higher cost with doctors, exams, medicines, and even with the health plan, we still have a lot of expenses. When my wife took maternity leave, we earned the same salary, and this salary would be enough to have a comfortable life with a child, but with our son's healthcare costs it would be completely unfeasible. We currently have good financial conditions because I got promotions that increased, and it is possible to have a comfortable life and provide all the healthcare for our son. Our son is 1.5 years and we sat down to talk about these plans. She said she talked to the company and they were willing to hire her again under the same conditions, and that we would have to plan financially for me to stay at home. I was very honest and paraphrasing, I said, look, I know that our plans were these in the beginning, but we were only able to have this comfortable life because of my salary. If we depend only on yours, it will totally compromise our income and not give us the same quality of health for our son. I'm sorry, but you being the sole provider in the house is not possible, and I'm not going to do this with our son. Daycare is not an option for us because my wife is completely against it due to the bad reputation of these places in my country, and it has always been her wish to only enroll in school at the age of 4. She argued, saying that it was our agreement and that she supported me being at home, and now it's my turn to give her that chance. I understand, and if it were the situation we expected I would agree and do it, but that's not our reality, and I'm not going to do that with our son, and you'll have to wait a little longer, unfortunately. She was very upset, saying that I went back on our initial agreement and wasn't committing to something. My work is not possible from home. I just don't see how making this change would compromise our family financially. I admit that maybe it was a failure in our communication, but on the day-to-day rush. Am I the asshole? I did make it very clear that she doesn't want our child to have a nanny or stay in a childcare all now. She wants someone to stay with him until he is 4 years old. For this idea, I can't stop working for her to come back. However, this should have been discussed once your son was around 6 months old. Attending daycare is very good for a child. I've seen children at my children's school who didn't attend daycare cry and refuse to go to school and be away from their parents. Daycare helps grow children's confidence and help them learn to create friendships. If your child goes to daycare, then you will have 2 incomes. I'm so sorry that your son has a birth injury and your country has inadequate health care. This is just a terribly difficult situation. But you can't unilaterally make this decision, and you need to weigh the lost future income for your wife as well as her caregiver burnout. I think, in these situations, it's important to know that there are no good solutions, just less bad ones. Look at the big picture of what you need to do for your family, and make a decision together, knowing that no one is going to be exactly happy with it. You are not the boss, you are a partner. You don't get to decide on your own. You made an agreement with her and now you are backing out. On the other hand, your wife insisting on no nanny is unreasonable. If she wants to work, she should be able to work, but to insist you stick to the original agreement is perhaps unreasonable. The two of you need to take a step back and talk about what you want out of your life together and make decisions based on that vision, not whether there was an agreement, or whether a nanny is a good idea or a bad one. But this is more than just something logical. It's a sacrifice on her part. It's almost always the mother sacrificing for the family and almost never the father. What are you going to sacrifice? How are you going to acknowledge your wife's sacrifice? I see her side. She sacrificed her career, and another 2 years she won't have the job, or the gap in experience will make it hard to find another job. No one is exploring option B. You let her work and one or both of you take a side hustle for extra income. This should be short-term as she will catch up on income. See this from her POF. It must be very frustrating for her that you're going back on what you agreed and throwing finances at her as a reason for you to not look after your child. Look at alternatives to a nursery if she's so against them. What about a nanny who can give your child consistent one-to-one care? You got promotions or pay raises because you worked. She could not earn them when she was not working. Her pay will always stay much lower than yours if she continues to stay home with the JID. That will affect her entire financial future. Please bear this in mind when deciding about y'all's options. Maybe both work 3 days a week. Compromise. Being a SOP is not a financial smart decision for future financial reasons. And you waited 1.5 years after your child was born to have this conversation? Look, there's nah. But your guys' communication needs work. You should have been discussing this from day one when your child had health problems. Now these things happen and it's really hard. Neither side is wrong. I was like your wife, nobody but family watched my son until he started preschool. It was so hard to drop him at the school with strangers. I cried for like 3 days. I wish I would have let myself get used to it by hiring a sitter once in a while. Maybe you could start with a few date nights and see if she gets comfortable with it. You may be able to provide for your son, but if you don't address your wife's resentment, it's the start of your marriage breaking down. After 2 years, you'll probably lose your family over this. You're the asshole. It doesn't sound like a discussion at all. You sat down and told her what's. You made a decision without involving her at all. That's shitty and not a way to treat your partner. You should have come to her and told her your worries about finances and then made a decision together. You could have told her your feelings on staying with your income and asked how she felt. You may even have been able to work out a way she could go back to work, but you closed off any discussion. Shit way to treat your wife, buddy. The only thing that makes you an asshole is how you are turning the conversation into more of a competitive argument by consistently saying, I instead of, we. You're putting a lot of emphasis on what you won't do, instead of what both of you can and cannot do as a team. Y'all can't get on the same page when you talk like that. ESH. A deal was made and now it is being broken. You two need to sit down and work it out, and someone is going to have to compromise. You're right not to want to negatively impact your son's health, but it appears you didn't really give her a chance to try and find a different solution. You just set the terms and want her to be happy with it. You're the asshole. You've gotten promotions because your wife stayed at home and enabled you to do that. It's her turn. This is how so many women get sidelined. Time for you to get a side hustle if you want to continue to live in the way you've gotten accustomed to. Info: have you looked into hiring an au pair or a nanny so you don't have to enroll your son in daycare? If the two of you are working, it should be possible to pay for. Ask her what she is willing to go without. You're the asshole. You knew this was 1.5 years ago yet made no plans, build up savings, etc. You decided your own that your wife can't go back to work, and you decided on your own that you get to give permission. You don't sound like you ever really believed you would have to go on leave for 2 years. You duat agreed BC got you what you wanted in the short term. AITA man. If you had roughly the same income when you were both working, that means y'all made it work at first, then you had the opportunity to improve your income over the past 1.5 years. Your agreement was that your wife also have this opportunity versus waiting 4 full years without being employed at all. Are you telling me there are no other concessions you can make, aside from your child's health, to allow her the chance to work and improve her salary, as you had agreed? A gentle "you're the asshole" from me. Did you sit down with her first before you made this decision and talk with her about how to manage finances on her reduced income? Or did you just make the decision without a discussion? If the latter, AITA. Am I the asshole? For telling my estranged grandparents I don't care if their grandkids are in foster care? I'm married to my wife and we're expecting our first baby. I'm estranged from my paternal side of the family after my father's affair on my dying mom and their willingness to try and defend his actions. While mom was sick, he left me to do more caring for her while he was screwing someone else. He even brought said other woman to my mom's funeral. His family also tried to get my mom to forgive before it's too late while she was still alive. It was a nightmare. I was 15 and it was a lot. Mom needed to be cared for and I was the only one who could when my aunt had to work. After mom died, I moved in with my aunt. My father married the other woman and invited me to the wedding, but I didn't go or even acknowledge the invite. I had nothing to do with any of them. I heard he died last year and it was no concern to me. Also found out he had 2 kids. His other woman's second wife died 4 months ago. My paternal grandparents took the kids in, but they do not feel like they can raise 2 kids under 5 or 6 or whatever age they are. They mentioned me to a social worker who approached me and asked if my wife and I would be willing to raise these kids. We said no. The social worker made a note of it and said they would not approach me again. My grandparents have not given up and contacted me and my wife both over this. They tried to use guilt trips and sob stories about foster care being horrific for kids, and one is a little girl, so it's even worse. None of this changed anything for me, and then they tried getting my aunt to talk to me. They showed up at her house with the kids and appealed to her as a former foster kid she and my mom both were. She told them to get the fuck out. I ended up talking to them over the phone instead of ignoring their messages to me. We talked. They told me after they went to my aunt's house they had spoken to the social worker again and now the kids are in care. They asked me how I could be okay with my siblings being in care. I said I don't care that their grandkids are in foster care. They are nothing to me, and the fact is I am not going to pretend I care about saving them. I said they need to accept the kids are now in care and a social worker will work on finding them a good family, but they need to accept I will not be that. They called me a monster and said I should be ashamed of myself, and they hope the birth of my child brings me nothing but guilt. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. This is actually the kind of situation that appeals to foster to adopt parents' 2 kids, under 6-ish, who haven't been abused or neglected. Parents are dead and extended family isn't able to take the kids, so reunification isn't on the table. Frankly, they really could be adopted in 6 months or so, depending on your state's timeline. Not the asshole. You have no obligation, morally or legally, to raise someone else's children. If they're so worried about it, then they can raise them and pay for extra help. I'm so sorry for the loss of your mom. I know that never truly goes away. Do what is best for you and what will make you happy in the long run. Congratulations on your first baby coming soon. Actions have consequences, and your father's actions sadly impacted the lives of all 3 of his children profoundly. Your grandparents need to be contacting all of the extended family on both their side as well as your stepmother's side of the family to try to find a family member willing to take on the children. What happened to those children is truly tragic. Ask them, where were you when I was 15? Not the asshole. Your grandparents hoping to fob off their responsibility onto you is unconscionable. They are projecting their own monstrousness onto you and your wife. Ask them where they were when you, their other grandchild, were 15 and trying to care for your dying mother. Forget they exist. Not the asshole. While I do have empathy for the children, they are not your responsibility. So to be clear, the people who had a relationship with the children chose to turn those children over to foster care, simmering they believe as basically handing the kids over to be sad. Weird they don't think boys get sad, but someone else is the monster here. If they ever contacted me again, all my responses would be focused on those above facts. You don't think the people who knew them and who they loved and trusted and chose to hand them over to what they believe is a life of abuse is a monster? You made that choice. Which one of us is the monster again? Not the asshole. Not the asshole. There are a lot of kids in foster care. Are you supposed to take in all of them, too? You don't know these kids. You are only related to them by blood because your father couldn't keep his pants zipped. You're doing what's right for you. Your grandparents should be ashamed of themselves. Not the asshole. Your grandparents chose to support your cheating father who abandoned your dying mom along with his 15-year-old child to care for her. They are now choosing to put their grandkids into foster care. These are choices they made out of their own free will. You are not obligated to support their choices. Not the asshole. Not the asshole, you don't even know those kids and you never have to take kids in. Not to mention you've got your own kid on the way and need to focus on being a first-time dad to a newborn, not a first-time dad to multiple kids all at once. You have a duty to your wife, and if the grandparents wanted support they should have supported 15-year-old you instead of covering for a sick adulterer. They made their own bed, they can lay in it. Block them on everything and move on. Okay, so I was a foster kid and I have a literal fuckton of unresolved trauma that I'm working on unpacking because of it. Foster care is a broken system that's way outdated and abuse and neglect are way too common. That being said, those are also common in families like this where responsibility is forced rather than accepted, which I also have trauma from, so honestly, I do think you made a wise choice not only for yourself, but also for the kids. There are good families out there and resources for them if your grandparents really want to help those kids. I'm gonna say not the asshole. Not the asshole. You're not an asshole for not wanting to be the guardian of estranged family members. It certainly is a very difficult position to be in though. Not the asshole. I feel terrible for the kids to lose both parents at such a young age, but you're not responsible for them. If your grandparents really can't care for the kids themselves, they should be contacting extended family, including the mother's side of the family. Not the asshole. It sounds to me like they want you to take the kids so they still get the fun parts of being a grandparent. They acknowledged that they cannot raise them but expect you to? It's a sad story for all involved but ultimately not your problem. Not the asshole. This is not your responsibility or duty. It's disgusting that you are being hounded in this way. Not the asshole. This is tragic for those kids, but none of it is your fault. Your grandparents are the ones who should be ashamed of themselves. They raised a man who cheated on his dying wife and left his child to fend for themselves during and after her death. That is absolutely despicable. Now they are abandoning their own grandkids and letting them go into care. If you haven't already, I would suggest blocking them and be done with it. Not the asshole. I feel sorry for the kids, but they're no more your concern than any stranger's kids would be. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Even if they were you loved and knew these kids, it wouldn't be on you or your wife to take them. You are very young, newly married and having your own baby. It's not wrong to want to have this time with you, your wife and new child. It is what it is. Some people would take them in if the circumstances were different and others wouldn't. Based on the situation, I absolutely wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't put a strain on my own marriage or family. If my husband brought home half-siblings he'd never met, he'd be doing this on his own. I only signed up for raising my own children and grandchildren if necessary. Not the asshole. I'd have gotten a restraining order. Not the asshole. This is not your responsibility, particularly with a new baby on the way. I am a grandparent raising a grandchild. I'm now 65 and he's 15. And yes, I get worn out and tired, and yes, I'd really rather be contemplating retirement now instead of looking at working another 5-7 years to get him through high school and college, but I didn't want him in foster care, so I took responsibility for him. And no, that's not complaining, just statement of facts. If I could go back 12 years, I'd still take him in. If your grandparents don't want the kids in foster care, they can find a way to make it work that the kids live with them. Am I the asshole for refusing to cut the umbilical cord? My wife is full term and being induced tomorrow. I told her quite early on that I didn't want to cut to the cord. I know it's just me and that I'm making it weird, but I find it really squeamish to cut into human flesh. It seems like a medical procedure and I'm really uncomfortable with it. My wife appeared to accept my decision at the time but under protest. Now the big day is upon us. My wife has pressed the issue again. I told her I want to be involved in every way I can, including catching the baby and handing him or her we don't know the sex to their new mum. I feel that my wife has a Hollywood idea of birth, including that I cut the cord. She also wants me to get in the shower with her and rub her back during labor, which she saw on a Netflix show. I've asked why the cord is so important to her and she couldn't say. Am I the asshole? Edit to answer some common questions. 1. The squeamishness is only about the cutting. I am a first responder so I've seen every kind of gore you can think of. Blood, guts, screaming etc. I am used to these things. 2. I don't want to get in the shower but I will because it's a reasonable request and it's a way I can compromise given my feelings about the cord. Not the asshole. If you don't want to cut human flesh, especially if you feel that is a violent action to do towards another person or it is a medical procedure, then you shouldn't. But what do you mean you are going to catch the baby? I'm guessing she is planning on doing more of a home birth kind of thing? You do understand how messy and horrifying watching a birth can be, with there also being a lot of tearing, so if you are squeamish about cutting the cord I really think you need to make sure you know what you are getting into. Not the asshole. I've never met a single person whose birth plan went how they thought, from both big and little changes. But having one is comforting at a time of high stress and pain. I wouldn't argue about this with your very pregnant wife if you don't have to. You know her wishes, she knows yours. No need to debate it. But decline and help her cuddle the baby while the cord is cut. I hope everything goes fabulously for all three of you. Not the asshole. My husband never cut the cord with our 2 boys and I don't care. Honestly, my favorite thing was the midwife who took photos. I had a C-section and one of them is my husband looking at our son for the first time. Being truthful, I don't know a lot of fathers who do cut the cord. Not the asshole. If you're not comfortable literally cutting the cord, I think the last thing that should be between you and your newborn is essentially a very sharp knife. Just popping in to say my husband was squeamish about it too and didn't cut the cord. I still felt like he advocated for me, protected me, encouraged me every step of the way and overall was an active partner through the entire process, including getting in the shower with me and doing hip presses during contractions, which were a huge savior. Pro tip: pack swim trunks and bring a birth ball into the shower if you can. Not the asshole. Just make sure to share with your wife all the ways you are eager to participate and support both her and your newborn, and I'm sure it'll be okay. My husband didn't either. Don't blame him. To be perfectly honest, I'd have rathered not be in close proximity myself. Shit like this doesn't matter, it's showing up day after day and being an involved parent that counts. Nah here I guess, but this is hardly a Hollywood idea of birth. Both of the things you mentioned are completely normal and common. I don't think I've ever heard the cord being called human flesh and it's a bit off-putting. Not the asshole. My fiancé isn't sure he can even look at the cord without feeling squeamish. Don't feel bad, it is what it is. I put in my birth plan. If he can't do it, I will. Good luck, hope everything goes well with the birth of your baby. Could you say a no that sounds like a yes? Like when they ask, say I would love to be involved, may I hold him while it gets cut? Or something which gets you in there while not doing the actual cutting part. Or ask your wife if she wants to plan for her to cut it if she feels strongly about the cord being cut. With support, obviously. I also think there will be so much going on in those first seconds after birth that fears, wants, and things you fixate on for the duration of your pregnancy kind of get lost in the chaos of the moment often. I'm pregnant and I would never expect my husband to have to do that. Just be there for your wife and newborn. The doctors can handle the umbilical cord. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, don't do it. This is but a mere second in the baby's life. No one will really care in the long your wife makes a big deal about it. It's not the momentous occasion that movies make it out to be. Nah. Of course you don't have to. She probably is just looking for more ways to share the experience with you. She's literally doing all of the work. Maybe from her perspective, you doing that means you're taking a more active role. I doubt it'll matter at all in the moment because there will be an actual baby, which is way more exciting than cutting the cord. Not the asshole. My husband was a bit freaked out by it, so he politely declined. The doctor started pressuring him, so I told the doctor to do it himself. Not the asshole. She can cut it if she wants. Nah. We all have a vision of how we'd like the birth to go. Can't blame her for that. But I don't blame you for not wanting to cut the cord either. My husband wanted to, but he was very shaky both times, and it freaked him out. But now he gets to point to the kid's belly buttons and say, I helped make that, lol. They will ask you if you want to cut it in the delivery room. Just say no. She'll be busy and probably won't even notice you didn't do it. I didn't watch my husband do it either time. I was getting stitches. Trust me, she is not going to be worrying about this after the baby is here. Not the asshole. My husband told the doctor, hey, you're the professional, go for it, smiley face. Life is full of uncomfortable moments. Your wife has had 9 months of them and you've got a lot of them to look forward to while you look after a baby, like the baby vomiting into your mouth moment. Lots of uncomfortable moments that you can't opt out of. But this one you can opt out of. Why make life more uncomfortable than it needs to be? You wouldn't want her to do anything she was uncomfortable with if it was easy to opt out, right? Also, the perfect birth doesn't include the father being grossed out, so cutting the cord while grossed out isn't really creating the best moment for her even if you try. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. I have 2 kids and my partner didn't cut either of their cords. Ultimately, it's your decision. It might seem important now, but once she's in labor everything else will quickly stop mattering. Man, I felt pressure to cut the cord with our first. It was horrible and I have bad visceral memories of it from time to time that still make shudder. Don't do it if you don't want to. Lol. My husband didn't want to do it, so I asked if I could do it. They said sure. It's not easy sawing through that thing, it's a tough material. Just wanted to pop in and note how life-altering a pregnancy and delivery is. It is quite possible to be life-ending. She has to push a whole-ass baby out of her. Rips and tears. Might even prolapse. Poop, pee, blood and fluids. All I'm saying is so much work for her and all she asked was for you to cut the cord. That's not asking much. You're a first responder, so if you were responding to an unassisted birth, would you still be too squeamish to cut the cord? Nata, if you don't want to, then you don't want to. But my husband didn't until the moment came and he did, so don't overthink it. And I don't think it's a Hollywood idea of birth to have you cut cord, but it's also okay to not do that if it makes you feel squeamish. Not the asshole. You've discussed this early on, you're very supportive otherwise, and only have one simple boundary. This is very fair. Nata. Make sure the doctors know how you feel so they know not to ask. Info: is this a home birth? You don't really catch the baby and no hospital that I'm aware of does the shower thing. Nata. My ex didn't want to cut the cord either. Your choice. I couldn't then and still don't see why it's expected. Am I the asshole? For telling a stranger to not touch my baby bump? I F26 am pregnant with my first child. I am 25 weeks pregnant and the past 2 weeks I've had people come up to me and ask me if they can feel my bump. Why? Why do people think this is an okay thing to ask? Well, I finally snapped today. I was in line waiting to check in at the chiropractor clinic, and this man standing in front of me noticed I was pregnant and asked me if the baby was moving right now. I told him she was moving a little bit. Then he reached his arm out and started feeling my baby bump. I felt so uncomfortable. I yelled at him to never touch a pregnant woman's baby bump, especially without asking. He got upset and quietly called me an asshole and turned around. I got home a little bit ago and told my husband what happened. He told me I should have just let the guy touch my bump quick and that I shouldn't have yelled at him. He said it's not that big of a deal. I probably shouldn't have yelled, but maybe he'll think twice about doing that to another pregnant woman. I am starting to feel bad now though and don't know if I'm in the wrong. Was I wrong for getting upset he touched my baby bump? Not the asshole. How about some guy touch your husband's ass to see how tight it is? No one can touch you without your matter your age. Not the asshole, but your husband sure is. I mean, what in the eyes wide shut bullshit is this? He told me I should have just let the guy touch my bump quick and that I shouldn't have yelled at him. He said it's not that big of a deal. If some random stranger wanted to touch my wife's baby bump, you can count on me being very firm in telling them to fuck right off. It's your body. Only people who you want touching it are allowed to touch. Full stop. Not at all. My last pregnancy, my sister was a few weeks ahead of me. People would see us together go for her bump. I could see her discomfort. So I would touch their stomachs and gush about how big they were as well. No one touched me, no one touched her again. Between us, she is the much kinder sister. You're allowed to have your space. To prove your point, I'd ask a few females you know to walk up, touch his stuff. He'll change his tune fast. Not the asshole, absolutely not in any way. It's not acceptable to touch a stranger's abdomen uninvited. This does not change suddenly because you're pregnant. In fact, as you have a little person growing in there, I'd go so far as to say that it's less acceptable. Your husband said what? He's down with some rando guy fondling his wife? Not the asshole, and you have every right to insist on body autonomy, pregnant or not. No one should touch you without permission. And I'm giving your husband the side eye. Not the asshole, you are pregnant, not public property. Not the asshole. People shouldn't be touching other people uninvited anyway. You're not a petting zoo and you should have told him that. And you should tell your husband that. Nata, we need to normalize not touching people without asking first. Pregnant women are people, not vessels for carrying babies. Not the asshole. A pregnant woman's bump is not public property. Frankly, it's weird for a stranger to ask to touch the baby bump of someone they don't know, emo. But even friends and family should ask before just assuming they have the right. That said, I must have some world-class RBF because in 3 pregnancies, no one ever asked to touch my baby bump. Not even my boundary-stomping IDGAF in-laws. Not the asshole. Who does that? Who thinks it's okay to touch a woman without her consent? Why does your husband think it's okay to touch any woman without her consent, never mind his wife? I'd be very concerned about him as a father and the likelihood he'll teach your child that strangers touching women without consent is okay. In what other ways is he a misogynist? Not the asshole. I've only experienced one stranger touching my bump, but I grabbed his wrist with a vice grip and held it tightly for a good moment before tossing it back at him. Honestly, it was instinctive, but wow, was it effective. He apologized immediately and said he wasn't thinking, then walked away. It sounds confrontational, but it really wasn't. Really left me feeling in control. I recommend trying it to anyone being touched unwillingly. I've heard of this for some time, but only once had something similar happen to me. In that case it was a friend's 8-year-old daughter, and she asked if she could feel the baby moving. She was a sweet kid, so I was like, yeah sure. Push right here and it will kick back. Does your hubby not realize that some men have a fetish for pregnant nursing women? Or that she has bodily autonomy? What if he'd fondled your vagina or breasts? Where is his line in the sand? When people tried this with my bestie who barely spoke English, I told them it was a very painful 6-pound tumor that's about to burst. Stop the hands immediately. Next, someone touches your belly, reach right out and touch theirs. When they take offense or asks WTF, you look surprised and say either we were playing the touch a stranger inappropriately game. Or grab their crotch. I don't know why strangers and even some acquaintances seem to think this is fine. It is not. You were not wrong. Except when he called you an asshole, you should have said loudly, "Oh, I'm the asshole. The woman who called you out for touching me inappropriately. I am the asshole. You, sir, are the asshole. Not the asshole. You did the right thing." It's the same if a random stranger shows up and wants to touch your stomach normally. It's weird, creepy and invasive of your personal space. Keep telling them to fuck off, but if they ask kindly and are your friends, you might want to allow it for a short while, but it is understandable if you don't want it. Not the asshole. Ask your husband if he would be okay with random people patting his stomach or grabbing his ass. BTW, it's more effective to pat their stomachy back. They ones being awkward first. Not the asshole. A stranger touched you without your consent. You are not the but that stranger is, and so is your husband. First, for thinking it's okay, and second, for making you feel like you should have stood by passively and let it happen, and third, for thinking a man's feelings come before a woman's bodily autonomy and her well-being. He told me I should have just let the guy touch my bump quick and that I shouldn't have yelled at him. He said it's not that big of a deal. No. You should have yelled. It is not okay to gripe a stranger. It is a big deal. You are a person, not a commodity. I have touched one baby bump in my life, my mom's, and she was cool with it, and I came out of there too. These people are creepy assholes. If I had a pregnant wife, I'd be blockguarding her. Not the asshole. People seem to lose all sense when they see pregnant women. No one has a right to touch your belly, especially a stranger. I think you handled it well. He told me I should have just let the guy touch my bump quick and that I shouldn't have yelled at him. He said it's not that big of a deal. Not his body, not his decision. No touchy when it's not yours. Simple. Goes for items, baby bumps, hair, pets, kids and fries. Just do fucking not. Not the asshole. I'd be seriously unhappy with the husband as well. Not the asshole. I feel weird asking to pet PPLS dogs. How TF are people walking up to strangers and asking to feel their baby bump? Not the asshole. I hated when anyone would touch my belly without permission when I was pregnant. When I didn't know the person, I'd end up just looking really shocked and said I'm not pregnant. Then they felt more awkward than I did. Smiley face. What kind of a husband tells his wife to just let other men touch her? Not the asshole. JFC. It's not a hard concept. Don't touch anyone without their permission. But especially don't touch the pregnant belly unless you want hardcore mama bear to come out. Honestly, I just start slapping hands and growling at people. Blame it on the hormones, but make them believe you will rip their hand off if they try again. Not the asshole. We're taught to keep our hands to ourselves in grade school. No one has the right to touch you without your permission. No one. Not the asshole. The fact that your husband didn't see the big deal is concerning. I had 1 or 2 incidents with strangers, old ladies, and I yelled and jumped back. Who cares if weird randos are offended? I even denied acquaintances when they asked. Sorry, I don't like being touched. If anyone got pushy, I'd say my body, my choice, and walk away. Good practice for later on when this type zoomed in on my baby and tried to kiss or grab her.